Hey, this is Mike Ginnitti from Spotrac presenting Brock Purdy's contract extension breakdown with the San Francisco 49ers. It's a 5-year, $265 million new year, new money extension. But the devil, of course, is in the details, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Let's get into it. Here's your basic terms. 5 years, 265, as I mentioned, that's a $53 million APY. Ninth in the league right now, but somewhat convoluted, as we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. There's a $40 million signing bonus that greatly increases his 2025 compensation. 100 million guaranteed at signing. That was the big number we were waiting for. And honestly, it's a little bit smaller than I kind of expected. I was pushing out about 120 in some recent predictions. So that falls a little bit short. But when we talk about how this all comes together, that number slides up just a little bit, as did the total injury guarantee on this contract, which actually chimes in at 182.5 million when factoring in some 2029 compensation that can be early triggered. All in, it's a 6-year, $270 million contract locked in through 2030. They have used a couple of void years because of multiple bonuses that we'll talk about here in just a second. All right. In terms of cash, as I mentioned, Brock Purdy no longer making 5.3 million in 2025. That number has now increased to 41.1 thanks to that signing bonus and a minimum $1.1 million salary. A significant upgrade for Purdy this year. One of the big reasons to do the contract right now, of course, is to lock in as much early cash as possible. And the 49ers have been extremely good about front loading good cash payments and then getting themselves some value later in the deal. Well, this is actually the tale of two contracts. And we use this potential outline, generally speaking, to say this is when the contract could be expired. And in this case, it's a very different conversation. So if we start to talk about things from a practical standpoint, yes, this 115.3, which is also noted here, is the practical cash in terms of the structure of this contract and how the guarantees get there. However, as we're going to talk about here, the way that Purdy gets the 115 could be drastically different. All right. And we're seeing more and more of this happening right now with Kirk Cousins, I believe. But he's locked in here and he's locked in here. So if we look at this $100 million guaranteed at signing, there's the $40 million signing bonus, this year's minimum salary, all of next year's compensation, and then almost 12 million of 2027. So 2.5-year guarantee represents the 100 million guaranteed at signing. And then we have to talk about what's next. And generally speaking, those are the details that separate the men from the boys with these big contracts. And April 1st of 2026, and by the way, April 1st is the San Francisco 49ers trigger vesting date for roster bonuses, option bonuses, guaranteed salaries. So nothing new there. But next April 1st, the rest of 2027 becomes fully guaranteed. Okay, that 15.3 here plus that 11.9 there equals the 27.25 million for 2027. So by April 1st of next year, all 3 years of this contract will have been locked in. Afterwards, things get fun. So you can see that while that 2027 $27 million compensation is pretty low, 2028 is a whole different ballgame. All right, we're at 55.05, a big jump up there in terms of the cash payment. And this salary, all 55 and change, becomes fully guaranteed on April 1st, 2027. So let's talk about the practicality version of this. Purdy plays out 2025, no problem. Purdy plays out 2026, again, no problem. And he's got 88 million in his pocket, by the way. 2027 is the big first what do we do now moment that the 49ers will have. Because on April 1st of 2027, all 55 becomes fully guaranteed. So do they want to let that happen? It's a big conversation. So it's not after 2027 they can walk away from this thing. Okay. It's after 2026, before April 1st, 2027. Do they want to allow all of 2028 to lock in? And if they don't, then they're going to have to make this a buyout, because this is already fully guaranteed as of April 2026. So if the answer is no to allowing the 2028 season to remain and fully guarantee, then $27.25 million is going to have to be paid to Brock Purdy on the way out the door before April 1st. Now it's subject to offsets. So Purdy goes and gets a minimum salary from somewhere else. This comes down to 25 and change. Still, though, a significant buyout for a player that won't be on the roster anymore. And by the way, this is just cash we're talking about. Okay, there'll be a significant amount of dead cap attached to this. If I flip over here, and of course, all three of these signing bonus prorations will hit the cap. And then 4 of these 7.5s from the option bonus in 2026 will hit the cap, as well as the likely outcome that any kind of exercise on the option bonus in 2027 would remain. So obviously we'll get to the dead cap portion of that line of demarcation if and when we have to talk about it, around the 2026 season, because a lot of things can happen with option bonuses not being exercised, some of these per game bonuses flexing a little bit. But for the most part, it's pretty clear cut like this. It's a 2-year contract that, as of right now, has $100 million attached to it. And by next April, we'll have $115.3 million attached to it. So this either becomes a 2 for 115, and then San Francisco walks away, or it becomes a 4 for 170 with 7.1 million more here as a buyout. So 4 for 177, 178-ish at the end of that day. Let's just say that's the most likely scenario. Okay, 4 years, $178 million. That's a $44.5 million per year contract. So you can hate the numbers. You can feel like this is not indicative of what this guy has done and that he's being pigeonholed because he was Mr. Irrelevant and all those things. And a lot of that is absolutely true. Unfortunately, where you start dictates how you finish, financially speaking, in this league. But the 49ers have protected themselves here, okay? Not only with some standard roster bonuses, but by essentially saying we are willing to hand him $27 million to walk away if it means we don't have to jump this thing up over $50 million in any season. And they have afforded themselves the opportunity to do that. Let's say it goes great. Okay. Let's say everything's working out and, he's having a bit of a Baker Mayfield renaissance where not only has he showing he can play this game, but he has taken the next step. The roster has come around. They've hit on a bunch of draft picks. Things are going great. The question then becomes, when does Brock Purdy want to flex out of this contract? And that's a fascinating way to look at it from the other side of it, because it's pretty obvious when we talk about these numbers. And if you have any kind of recollection of any other quarterback contract of late, right? Jordan Love, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, to name a few. These numbers are markedly bigger, okay? The 2-year payout's bigger. The 3-year payout's bigger. The 4-year payout's way bigger. And obviously, these annual cash payments are bigger as well. So at what point in time could Brock Purdy turn around and say, hey, I did you a solid by signing the extension you wanted early. And maybe I'm a fool for doing that, but most quarterbacks at some point in time, if they are near the top tier or in the top tier, are getting the financial power that they want. So at what point in time could Purdy have that conversation? Well, if we look at the caps, okay, and we understand that obviously this thing is team friendly out of the gate. The cap hit jumped up from 5.3 million, up to 9.1 million, but still only represents about 3% of the 49ers salary cap in 2025. So extreme value there. Really nice value next year at 24 and change. And by the way, there's a little wiggle room here on this base salary. Okay, they could restructure about $6 million of that to free up another $4 million if they had to. So they could make this a $20 million cap hit fairly easily as needed. And that would obviously lower this into the 7% of what we project the cap to be next year. And then again, doing nothing, a $31 million cap hit here in 2027 against what could be 330, 340 for the league should be well under 10% in terms of how that's allocated. So these 2 or 3 years we're talking about with real practical structure, because of the multiple bonus structure that it was built into this thing, come with cap flexibility and cap fairness and more wiggle room, as you can see here with these base salaries. Obviously, things change when the cash goes up and then the cap booms over the final 3 years of this contract. The 49ers do not like to extend contracts that have less than 1 year or more than 1 year remaining. Now, they've changed that course, specifically recently with Fred Warner, their off-ball linebacker. Okay, he had 2 years left, and they did tack on 3 here. So certainly, a healthy, productive starting quarterback would get that same treatment, which means it's most likely that Purdy is able to play out the 4 years we talked about, earn the 170, lock in $7 million of the 2029 salary, and then around this time with this $72 million hit sitting there, which could be even greater if there's some conversions before that. But around the time of 2029 with this hit about to hit the books, Brock Purdy can look back at San Francisco and say, all right, I'm 30 or about to be 30 years old. That's another great line of demarcation for player and team. Let's rip the last 2 years of this thing up, and let's cap adjust this for what is a $75 million per year quarterback, top of the market. Okay. And do we think Purdy will ever be a top of the market quarterback? I don't think anybody projects him to be that. But if he's, fringe tier 2, which essentially is what this money says, then we're talking high 60s per year in 2029, when the salary cap is probably approaching $375 million to $400 million per year. So he should keep things relatively clean and buttoned up from a cash and cap perspective. And that's what this contract says out loud. So just to recap quickly, huge pay increase for Purdy this year from 5.3 up to 41.1. All 88 of this is locked in. Half of 2027 is locked in at signing. And by April of next year, all 115.3 will have been locked in. And that's the practicality of this contract. So will they walk away after 2026, pay him a little cash, take on a sizable dead cap hit, and cut ties with their QB1? Or will they let things get to 2028 when obviously things balloon and the early triggers, right? 1 year early here, 1 year early here, and then a couple months early with that last $5 million of guarantee. There's a full no trade clause. That's standard stuff. Jimmy Garoppolo got one with San Francisco as well. Those are being baked into most of these quarterback contracts going forward. And outside of that, it's a pretty meat and potatoes deal. Per game roster bonuses, workout bonuses every year starting next year, which is also pretty standard. There's 4 bonuses total, a $40 million signing bonus, an option bonus that's guaranteed now, an option bonus that's half guaranteed, and a final one in 2028 before things trail off after that. So again, even with the bonus structure, you can see that 2029 becomes the what's next version of Brock Purdy in San Francisco, as long as he's allowed to stick around at a high level. That's Brock Purdy's 5-year, $265 million extension. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. We'll have plenty more coming all summer long, looking back at some of the free agent deals, plenty of these contract extensions, and a few projections for contracts that could hit the books in the coming weeks and months. My name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Spotrac podcast.